Hey, this is Malika of Evanston Live TV, and I have a very special guest with me here today. I have Omar Salem. Yes, he is new to District 65. He won his election to get on the board. And welcome to the show, Omar. Welcome back.
Yes, thanks, Malika. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here again.
Yes, yes. So, my first time meeting you was during the forum, the D65 forum.
Yep.
So this was your first race, your first campaign. So I know that had to be explain that experience.
Yeah, and actually, my your forum was my first event. Period. So the experience was I don't know what the right adjective is, but it was more everything than I could have imagined than I would have could have imagined. It was time consuming. It was exhausting. Parts of it were very rewarding. Um, but yeah, it was. I learned a lot, and I'm hoping, in addition to serving on the board, of course, but I'm hoping one of the things we can do is maybe change the way we campaign here in Evanston for school board to encourage more people to run. Because yeah, again, it was very all encompassing, right? Like physically, as far as having to do things, emotionally, as the toll it took on us. And yeah, so that I'm hoping to take what I learned and try to help make some changes to encourage others to run in the future.
Yeah, it takes a lot of courage to say, I think I'm going to run. I mean, like, what was that conversation in your head? Because trust me, there's a lot of residents out there. They're want to see some change. They have great ideas. They love their community, but when they start having that internal conversation with self to run, well, why don't you run? Eh,
Yep.
what
Yep.
was it that pushed you over and said, I'm about to jump in the pool. Here I go.
That's a great question. I don't know. So, I applied there was an opening back in, I think it was September, and I applied along with 12 other people. And so 13 people applied, and only two of us, Maya and I are the only two of that group that ended up running in this election. So I think that kind of speaks to your point that there are a lot of good people who are engaged, who are qualified, who want to serve, but I think it's the campaign process that scares people. So I don't know that there was a moment where I knew I was going to run. But they did ask us during the interviews for board member, are you planning to run either way? And I said yes. And so I feel like right there I just committed to it. But there was a lot of discussion with my wife about if we could, if our family was ready, if we could handle the commitment. But my wife is also a public school teacher, like me, and so I think we both knew that the process of campaigning was going to be more time consuming than actually being on the board. Like she and I kind of agreed that if we could get through the campaign process, being on the board would be easier in terms of the strain on our family and our kids.
Mm, mm. Okay, now I've had many conversations with former president of D65, Anya Tanya Brody, and it just sounds like a lot of work goes into being on the board, and you guys don't get paid for that. You are literally coming just from your heart and soul, caring about the kids. And she's like, it's a lot of work. It's almost like a full-time job that you don't get paid for, but I guess the reward is seeing the positive outcomes for the kids. So it sounds like a lot of work ahead of you.
Well, I think that's a great point. I think that's part of the reason why I was able to convince my wife to let me do it. One of the things I've said a lot throughout the campaign was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, there's no way I would have run. When I was still teaching in the classroom full time, I don't think I'd be able to do it. But because of my current job, and I do spend a lot of time at policy tables with the state board, with legislators, like I feel like there's some overlap in what I do for a living and the variability of my schedule. So I'm not, bound by a, 8 to 3:30 bell schedule, that I have the flexibility to do it. But that's a great point. I mean, it is, and that's one of the things that I think frustrated me throughout the campaign process, is that this, like, we were campaigning for a volunteer position. Like, a lot of times I felt like we were almost interviewing to be a superintendent sometimes, for how the questions we were asked, and, what are you going to change? And it's like, I'm going to be one of 7. I'm a volunteer. I'm going to do my best. Of course, I care about all the kids and the community as a whole, but this is a volunteer position. And it's funny you say it too, because there are some districts, like where I worked, where there is a small stipend attached for board members. And I remember as a teacher when I was younger, I thought, like, that's crazy. Why are they getting? And I think it was like 7,000 to 9,000. It's not a ton of money. When you think about it, that can cover childcare, that can cover, gas money, like little things like that. That now I realize I can see why they do it. Now I'm not going to make any type of push for that in D65, but again, now that I'm on it, now that I've been through the process, I can see why that exists.
Yes, yes. Well, we appreciate all of the work that D65 does. So we're all looking forward to seeing, what Omar is going to be bringing to the table. You ran a very interesting campaign that most are like, don't do it that way. And you still won. Actually, you came out as, your numbers were pretty high in the polls. And to be honest, I had never heard of Omar Salem. So you came out of like nowhere and just blew people away. Yeah, explain your strategy in that,
Yeah,
because it was different than most.
that's a great. No, I love that question, and I'm happy to talk about this, especially now. During the campaign, I didn't want to talk too much about campaigning. I wanted to talk more about the issues, but I'd love to talk about why I did it, because I do think what I was trying to do was really live equity, right? So, and yeah, part of the reason I came out of nowhere is my daughter's a kindergartner, so I'm pretty new to D65. I've lived in Evanston for 11 years, although I always say I tangentially grew up here, growing up in Morton Grove, Skokie. But anyway, I'm not a pillar of the community. I'm not very well known yet, but yeah, I think my strategy was, just from the last few elections and living here, I feel like Evanston's a very engaged community. I feel like the folks that vote seek out information. And so I used that as one component, that I didn't think I needed to do mailers. I didn't think I needed to spend too much money. And, when I say I try to live equity, like, one of the things I really like to do is practice what I preach. And so I knew going into this that, like, equity, the idea of equity was going to come up a lot. And as a teacher, and I was like someone who provides professional development, I talk about what equity means. And so to run a campaign, to make it so that anyone can be on the school board, we need to change the way we do elections in Evanston. And so I felt like I could live that. And so, I was offered money by, like, the teachers union and some other organizations, and I decided I didn't want to take any. I decided, if anyone wanted to give me money, let's donate it to charity. So part of my job, I've only had this job for about 2 years, but one of the things we do is canvass. So for several elections since I've changed jobs, I've been in the city or other places passing out, campaign material, and realizing that, like, we're spending all this money on paper and plastic, and we're putting up signs and dropping, literature on people's doors. And I don't know, and I'm sure there's data about it, but I don't know if I believe all of the data, because I think with the way technology has changed, I'm not convinced that a door hanger or a flyer is convincing people who to vote for. I think nowadays, a handful of forums and a good website, and then being accessible. So I really tried to focus my campaign on being accessible to people, and talking to as many people individually or in small groups as I could. And yeah, and again, I keep going to that equity piece, because I'd love to see, like, I think the way we run is inequitable, like not just having money yourself, but even asking your friends to donate. I mean, some folks, I'm pretty sure have spent thousands and thousands of dollars on campaigns in Evanston for D65, for alderperson, for other, and that money can go to much better places. And that's why I did put a link to the Evanston community fridges on my website, and I encouraged people to donate money there. And then and then I did impose a self-imposed $500 spending limit. And to be perfectly honest, where that came from was I wanted to pick a small enough number that, in the future, like let's say everybody agrees to spend $500 and that's it. So like that's a part of the equity component. But also I'd love to see a situation where in a few years there's some sort of organization, maybe it's the DPOE, maybe it's League of Women Voters, where there's a collection of money and anybody who wants to run gets $500 and then that's all they spend. That might be wishful thinking, but again, like that's kind of how I see things. Like let me try to demonstrate, and if it works, maybe other folks will do that as well.
All right, that took some courage. You really, that was a gamble.
Yeah.
That was a
Definitely.
gamble to see if that would work, and it worked for you.
It's
It
funny you
worked.
say that because a lot of people I like and trust told me it was not a good idea. Someone I'd love even said it was stupid. You have to take money. You have to do mailers. Mailers win elections. And frankly, I wasn't even going to do real signs. So after the November election, my 5-year-old daughter, Sydney, and I drove around, picked up all the old signs. We spent the winter painting them. And my thought was we would do homemade signs. We would do engagement sessions with like young people painting the signs while I talk to the parents. And I will say that that's not my original idea. I stole that from, I think his name's James Johnson. He's a council member in Skokie. He did that a few years ago. So I was like, well, let's do that. That's it's greener, it's cheaper, and it gives me a chance to engage with parents. And frankly, the reason I didn't get to do it was because of my time. Like I agreed to do so many events early in the campaign, and I didn't budget my time to host these events that we just kind of ran out of time. And so the majority of my budget was spent on my signs, which again, in hindsight, one of the things I'm still questioning is, did I need them? I don't know that I needed to buy signs. And so, but again, it's done and I did. So.
Well, I think that's pretty awesome. Anyone who would donate to you, you wanted it to go to a cause. So you don't want to take the donations personally. And as we know, in this past election, donations became questionable I would say for one candidate. It was very questionable.
Yeah.
If it was a donation or a bribe or like exactly what was it? It was reported that the money was returned, but then it was also reported that not all the money was returned. So, I guess the donations can get a little tricky. So you made sure you didn't go down that path so nobody could question you.
Absolutely. And that was a big part of it, Malika. Early in the process, like before we even submitted signatures, so it must have been November, like I was open to taking money and I wasn't soliciting any, but I had, again, like the teachers union had reached out, a few other local organizations, a possible PAC had reached out and said they would like to give me money. And at first I'm thinking like, great, this is amazing. And then the more and more one, like looked into the regulations, but two, it's that like use the word bribe. And that's an interesting word because like I didn't want to feel like I owed anybody anything, including the teachers union, including who I work for, And again, I just want to make clear, I work for the Illinois Federation of Teachers, which is the second largest teachers union in Illinois. It is not the teachers union that represents D65 employees or D202. So no conflict of interest there, I would say. But point is, I want to be able to make decisions for what I think is best. I don't want to owe anybody anything. And so that's a big part of it, but also just the reporting regulations I didn't want to deal with. And so that's kind of why I exactly meant like a lot of reasons went into it, but yeah, those were important too.
That's interesting. Owing someone. Yeah, because some people, if they give you a large donation, they own you. Like they're coming back for a favor, they're coming back for something. People don't give large sums of money for absolutely nothing. Like they want something from you in return. And when you accept it, you're either shaking hands with the devil or a possible angel.
Right.
Possible.
It could be good sometimes. Exactly. It could be good
Could be too.
sometimes, but even that, like even taking it from the teachers union or the firemen's union, or like there's still that level of, if they call you about something, ooh, do I have to listen to them more than someone who didn't give me money? And that's a situation I never want to be in.
Right, right. Well, I wonder if more people are going to follow your method. I mean, it
I
would
hope so.
definitely keep things leveled for sure. No real corruption or suspect, behavior um, that's often involved in politics.
Yep.
But that speaks really to your integrity and your character, that you don't want to owe anybody. You are doing this work for free, and you care about the education of children, period.
Absolutely. No, and that's a great point. I think, and that's one of the things I tried to demonstrate to folks, or even just in some of the smaller conversations, is like, I know I'm coming at this from a place of privilege, like the time that I have because of my job, the fact that my folks and my in-laws live nearby, so I have childcare, and I have a lot of privileges that lend to this. And so how can we, like, again, how do we make the whole process more equitable, so that people who don't have the same privileges can still be on the school board, because they should definitely get to be. So
Yeah, I know. In actually an acquaintance, an associate of mine, I used to be on her board for We Will Women.
mm,
She was definitely fighting for childcare being part of the campaign, because so many, not just women, but
yeah,
mostly women who run usually encounter childcare issues.
yep,
And running a campaign is very, very time consuming. Yeah, you have to do events, you're on the phone, you're knocking on doors, putting signs up. Yeah. So, yeah, yeah, that's huge. And Sergio Hernandez and Maya Wilkins, they ran great campaigns. They did accept donations, and we know that they are definitely pure soul, good people. So it's just interesting. Hey, di- different ways
yeah,
of
exactly.
good people doing good work, and they took different approaches. And
Yeah, and that's one of the things I tried to do throughout the campaign, was not talk about the other four
mm,
people campaigning. Like, everyone has to make the right decisions for them, and whether they take money, whether they do events, where they go. I'm not here to criticize, or speak of it either way, really.
you just
But
did what worked for you.
exactly. But
What
I
worked
will
for you.
say, like, um focusing on what I did, like, it really is like a, let's demonstrate what can happen. It's funny because a lot of the people who know me, that's like par for the course. Like, I can never just do something. There has to be like an ulterior motive. And in this case, it really is like, I'm going to be talking about equity for months. How can we demonstrate equity? How can I show people that this is what real equity is? And the story, like, you're talking about childcare, that's one of the biggest things. Like, school board, especially the D65 school board, where in general you're going to have folks who have younger kids because of the ages that D65 serves. So how can we eliminate some of those barriers? And so again, that's like, maybe that's something we look at when there are forums. Maybe we ask, you know, um, some of these organizations, like, can you provide childcare? And so if you want us to show up in person on a Saturday, do you have 6 babysitters who can hang out with the kids and stuff like those are the kinds of barriers we need to remove, so that people can run for, because once or twice a month meeting for the school board is manageable, right? You can figure things out, but 4 to 6 days a week of campaigning on top of working full time is not sustainable for the majority of people.
Yeah, it's not. You should definitely. I should give you Alexandra Eidenberg's information, because
Cool.
she was really pushing for childcare, running campaigns. Because yeah, I could only imagine. Um, and the race also got interesting with the mailers. You mentioned the mailers. You felt doing mailers was not important, but yet, and let me pull this up right quick.
Oh,
So this mailer ends up in people's mailbox, and you were very clear to the public that you were not about, you didn't think the mailers were important. Um, you spent your $500 on signs, and any donations that came to you, you wanted it to go to a cause, not to you. But then this mailer pops up. So, and I know this had to have been very, very stressful when you saw this.
definitely. So, yeah, so I was on vacation. I was in Cancun with my not folk, with my family, my wife and my kids, and on a trip that we had booked before I even applied. So we booked this trip way back in September. And yeah, I was kind of disconnected. And I got several text messages and Facebook messages asking me if I knew about it, criticizing me, like, how could you do this? Like, why are you playing both sides? Things like that. And so I didn't address it till I got home. And I think that upset some people. I think some folks were upset that I wasn't in front of it, even though I don't know how I could have been in front of it because I wasn't asked for my permission. So for like full disclosure, I did appear on some handouts that Sergio and Maya had put together, but they asked for
Mhm.
my permission and I said it was okay. And I let them know early on I wasn't going to be
Yeah,
putting any money to it.
make
Yes,
that clear. Sergio and Maya, they asked for your permission,
correct,
and you
correct,
gave them permission. But
correct.
this
And I agreed,
mailer,
did
you
not.
didn't, you were not asked.
Correct. And now, as
Sure.
far as I know, I don't think this came from John and Indona's camps. I'm like, it appears Evanston Schools Update is another organization. And so I don't know if they were asked either. Like, I never talked to them about it. So one of the things I did say when I put a statement on Facebook and a few different groups and on my website was that I wasn't asked for permission. I'm not a politician. I'm very clear on I'm not a politician, but I do work for an organization affiliated with politics. So I reached out to the folks who know politics really well and who were, are lobbyists and other things in my organization. And they pretty much, like, if there was any ramifications, and they said pretty, unless it was negative or, I was unhappy with what they said about me, maybe there'd be a case, but there wasn't. And so that just sucks. Like, I don't know how else to say it other than it sucks. Like, it was it upset me because it made me look like something I didn't do, I had nothing to do with, and frankly couldn't have prevented, just made me appear to be, playing both sides as something I heard about myself, or running down the middle is something I heard about myself. Um, and again, there's like, it's not like they said something negative about me so I could file some sort of complaint with like the election board. It was almost like it was a positive, like it appears to be a positive thing about me, but again, I think based on who put it out, it appears like it isn't. So it caused some stress the last couple of days because I think those came out the weekend before election day. And so it definitely caused some stress towards the end, which, kind of put a damper on the last few days for me before the election.
So that organization was pretty much putting out who they wanted to
Correct.
win. And I mean, just based on the forums, you being on my forum and the other forums that I watched, uh, your take and views on things were very different from, say, Indona's. Um, your approach to things seemed very different from Indona's, and you're very different from John as well, John Martin. So to see you on that mailer would make people think that you have the same vision and principles and approach to education. that they do. So yeah, that would be very misleading to the public. Um, and that's unfortunate that they didn't ask for your permission, but clearly they thought highly of you because they're letting people know, look, these are our picks, you know.
Well, and that's the tricky part, and that's the part that like I would say I wasn't ready for, just in general. Like if I could have had it my way, going back to like this equity component, like my picture would not have been sent to anybody. Like my name and picture would not have been used at all. But I did agree early on, mostly because we had the same endorsements. So other than the Chicago Federation of Labor, Maya, Sergio, and I had the exact same endorsements across the board. And so, I saw that as these mailers are going out to share that we were endorsed by the same people. And so while, again, and part of the reason I'm being very particular in how I say this is I wasn't on a slate. I wasn't, I wasn't running with anyone per se. But like you just said, I think a lot of my views align more with certain candidates than others. But I also didn't, again, I wasn't on a slate either way. And so I think what happened, the feedback I got most that frustrated me the most was like, why are you doing this? Why are you running on both sides? Why are you appearing on this? And it's like, I didn't agree to this. I didn't know it was coming. I couldn't get in front of something that I didn't know was happening.
Right. You're like you're under a palm tree in Cancun with your wife
and my kids having a great time, and literally, and that's what it was, and that's exactly what it was. And my wife is a very forgiving woman. She's amazing, but it did put a damper on our last couple of days where, I needed to start playing defense from Mexico, and I sent my update from the airplane as soon as we landed. I sent it, and it's like, this is not how a vacation should be ending. This is not like I should have been focused on my kids. And so that was frustrating. And that's like, and again, going into public office or whatever, there's a component of that's going to happen. It just felt like with this, and that was just one example. There's so many things throughout the campaign that were, like I said, I think early on, is everything was just more than it could have been expected. So.
Well, you got a good dose of Evanston politics.
Mm-hmm.
It can get us, I had a very high city official for the state. I won't say who, but she's she's an amazing woman. And she said, that Evanston politics can get pretty nasty. She's like, I would deal state any day over local politics in Evanston.
That's so true. Yeah. And again, like because of my job, I've been more exposed to state level and other politics that I hadn't really engaged in much when I was teaching in the classroom. And all politics is a little messy. I didn't expect it to be this bad in Evanston. And then what worries me is it's going to discourage good people from running in the future. I think like one of the jokes with some of my friends was like, was I was everyone's third candidate. I was everyone's third pick. And then I would joke, no, I'm actually everyone's first pick. And then, but the point is, I had the most votes, and I was still hearing, and I was doing my best to kind of disengage at some point, but it's really hard. And I'd get messages from some of my friends with a screenshot of something on Facebook or on Evanston Now in the comments. And it's like, I was the candidate that the most people liked. So why would anyone want to run if I took it that bad? And so that's what I worry about in 2 years and in 4 years. Are we losing out on people who are qualified and have the capacity to serve because they don't want to go through the process of campaigning? So that's again, a big concern I have.
Well, we're looking forward to your work. So you've had your first meeting on D65. So tell us again, because we heard it during the forums, during your campaign. What is your vision, and what is the first thing Omar Salem wants to get done for D65 for the children, the youth of Evanston?
Yeah, no, that's well, it's funny. So I did have my first meeting on Wednesday morning. I was sworn in, and was a very short meeting, but so it's official now. But I think our first, we kind of had we have a wrinkle now, like thrown in, that I do have a big task, which is hiring a new superintendent. I think someone at my old district who's on the school board joked with me, like, this is the best thing that could happen, because really, as a school board member, that's all you get to, like, the most exciting thing a school board member can do is hire a superintendent. So that was like something she had joked with me, but it is something I'm looking forward to. I think Dr. Horton has done a lot of good things. I think he's, for reasons that are probably out of his control, he's a polarizing figure. And so I think there are a lot of folks sad to see him go. There are some folks that are happy to see him go. That doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is we get to pick somebody new. We get to go through the process of hiring a superintendent. So I feel like it's like all the things that I spoke to during the forums, I'm just going to take with me into interviews. So I can ask, how are you going to close, like, continue to close the opportunity gap? How are you going to, increase the number of educators of color? How are you going to make sure our students are, feeling safe, loved, and challenged every day? How are you going to make sure our curriculum is rigorous? Things like that. I think it's like, now I get to, like I said earlier, I was going through what I felt like was an interview process for superintendent. Now I can actually do that for real and help find the best candidate, who can help move us forward in D65.
Yeah, a lot of people are going to miss Dr. Horton. He had commitments and goals. He and Anya Tanya-Vudi both had goals that they wanted to achieve. And they were just checking off the boxes of things that they wanted to pour into D65 for the children. And one being returning a Fifth Ward school back into the Fifth Ward. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so the fifth, full disclosure, I live in the Fifth Ward, but in a part of it that will not go to the new school. But my wife and I have been huge proponents for it all along. Learning the history of Foster School and what's happened has been fascinating, but also devastating. I'm on the school assignment planning committee for the second phase, and we actually were given I was able to take a picture of like the pamphlet that went out in 1964 to explain that the school, it's unbelievable, like, what the history has done in this community. And again, it's an issue that has been somewhat polarizing, but I can't understand why. Just the number of folks I've talked to who are against it, or, maybe say things like, well, now we're going to resegregate the schools. And yes, that may happen, but that's because that's how Evanston is. We're not going to desegregate schools on the backs of our Black children to have to be bused half an hour away so that white children can have diverse schools. So that's something I'm a huge proponent for supporting the school.
And now, the Fifth Ward, actually, the population, the Black population in the Fifth Ward is declining. I was just looking at those demographics for the redistricting.
Yep.
And it is definitely declining. So, them saying that it's going to, segregate Evanston. I'm like, Evanston is been segregated. Right. What are you talking about? But the Fifth Ward School, it's looking like it won't be predominantly Black students.
So it may not be, right? And there is a large Latinx community. So I'm learning the data we've been getting from the committee that I've been serving on since earlier in the year, before I was on the board, has been fascinating. And I know there's some engagement meetings coming up in next week. There's the 17th, 18th, and 19th, I think, are the dates. But anyway, that's going to be great for the community to hear what we've been talking about, to see some of the data that we've been given, and how we've been making some of our recommendations. Now, we're not done with the process, I'm not allowed to talk about the recommendations, but I do think people will be happy with most of them, at least the ones we've done already. I think something I've learned through this process, but I think I knew going into it, is you're not going to make everybody happy anywhere, right? But particularly in Evanston, because we do have such an engaged population and people want what's best for their kids, some folks are going to be unhappy, but look at a map. Like one of the things I've been doing a lot because of these meetings is we have a map of where all the schools in Evanston are. There are a lot of schools in the less densely populated areas of Evanston in the north. And the 5th ward, which is the most dense, hasn't had a school in 60 years. And
Right.
even with it being built there, it's still going to be, there's still the possibility of overcrowding, because it's going to be the most dense school. So, Sarita Smith, who's chairing this or leading these meetings, has always said, if we could just pick up one of the schools and move it, that would solve a lot of things. And it's true. Unfortunately, we can't do those. So, I think, but, something else you mentioned earlier that I want to touch on is gentrification is going to happen. And someone asked about that in one of our meetings. And like, I'm of the belief that that's not the school board. The school district can't fix gentrification. Like that, the city, like we're gonna need some sort of partnership here, and the city is gonna have to make some policies if we want to counter gentrification, right? Because the city is what's segregated. The city and the way, things have transpired over the last many, many decades is why the schools look the way they do. So, this is going to be obviously this is already a big undertaking. But it's going to continue to be even once the school opens.
Omar, I'm really excited to see what comes from you, because you'll hear about people being on the school boards who don't really bring anything to the table. They're just there. They're just there to say what they like, what they don't like, but they bring no new ideas, no new approach to things. So, and I love that you're always speaking equity, and you don't just speak it, you've demonstrated it in your actions from day one running your campaign. So in sitting at that table, D65, how are you going to convince people to just do it? Just do
Yeah.
it.
No, that's such a good question. It's funny because I do feel this pressure, I would say, which is a good pressure, but I do feel like I made a lot of promises to people, parents, community members, support staff, teachers, admin, like people coming to me like, we really like you. We think you're going to be able to help make some change. Now I have to go do all the things I said. That's going to be hard. But, I think the board is a group of folks who want what's best for kids. Like the other 6 members want what's best for kids. They've been doing good work. So I'm not here I don't think I'm coming in changing everything. And again, I'm only one of 7, but I do think I'm also able to tap into my experience. I'm the most recent I know there are a handful of other educators on the board. I'm the one who's most recently been in the classroom. I taught during the pandemic. I taught hybrid learning after the pandemic. Like so I'm hoping that, and I have a good feeling they will, but listen, trust some of what I bring. Maybe I will bring a handful of new ideas. And, again, I think the ideas that I had during the campaign, which was to live equity, like let's do that as a board, and not to say that they have or haven't been, but that's something I really do try to do. Like everything we do, people are watching everything we do. And that's something I'm very cognizant of now that I'm in public office. So everything we do, everything we say, and it's funny because as a teacher, that's what we used to always say, the kids noticed. Like we could say things, but the students would notice what we did. So I could tell them something, but they'd be watching me and they could say, hey, Mr. Salem, you said this, but I saw you doing that. Or, I saw you texting during our things like little things like that. They catch it. So it's like, I think some of my experience as a teacher is going to help, because I'm not going to be able to tell the public one thing and then do something else. So I really know that my experiences in the classroom, working with teenagers, is going to help in this process, because they are a tough crowd. And I spent the last 15 years with them.
Well, I think the board that we have, the prior board, this board, and I'm sad to see Dr. Horton go. I think you guys are going to do some amazing things together. When great minds come together, magic happens. So I am really looking forward to what's going to come out of D65. I think it's been some good stuff coming out over the past several years that have come out, a lot of improvements.
Even just the student assignment planning process. So here's the thing, like I'm on that committee now for the 2nd phase. I didn't know much about the first phase, 1, because I wasn't a D65 parent yet, 2, because, I had other stuff going on. But um, they're really engaging the community through this process. You know, I believe there are 40 folks on the committee that I'm on. I'm not sure exactly, but I saw that number the other day. But the process is very inclusive. You know, there's a wide variety of folks represented. There are parents, there are former parents, there are people with no children, there are former educators, current. It's a very diverse group. And we're hashing things out. Like, we're talking about things. There's data, there's some arguments sometimes, but like, that's how you engage a community. So like, there are 7 of us on the school board, and ultimately we get to vote on certain things, but we need to keep engaging the community. And so that's what I think, like, that mindset that they created the assignment planning committee with, I just want to see us do with everything. Because, but now the other component is something I've realized in Evanston is people are going to say there's a lack of transparency. Because what I've learned too, and again, I think I learned this as a teacher, is you might have to say the same thing 10 times. We might have to send emails and, you know, text messages, go into the community. Like, you can't just say something once and expect everybody to know it. Like, they taught us that in teacher school very early on. And so that's that's something else I was saying during the campaign, is I think D65 is doing a lot of good things, but we need to see our engagement levels improve. And that's, you know, some folks will say, some parents don't want to, you know, aren't paying attention, or they're not doing this or that. Then we have to find a way to get to them. A good example would be like the Amplifying Black Voices survey that Northwestern did. And I know, you know, Henry Wilkins, who I've been working with on this planning committee, he's been very involved in that. They, like Northwestern, and they had a grant, but they went into the community to survey the Black community, because sometimes sending out an email isn't going to cut it. When you have an opt-in survey that people have to get an email to, read their email and agree to fill it out, that's not going to get us good data. We need to go into the community to get it. And like, I was at a Fifth Ward meeting the other night where they were sharing the results of the Amplifying Black Voices survey, and again, like that, like, they went into churches. You have to meet people where they are sometimes, and that's what I want to see D65 do across the board.
Awesome. All right, Omar, I have kept you. This was supposed to be a brief interview, but I have enjoyed talking to you. And yeah, I just find your approach to things very, very interesting. So, you know, we're excited to see what comes from Omar Salem on D65 for our youth.
Thank you
And
so much.
yeah, and
Thank you.
get ready for those who just want to push back, just to push back.
Well, here's the thing I would say. Like, one thing I'd love to share is, for anyone watching, is please reach out to me. Like, I love talking to people. I love talking about public ed. It's my life. You know, it's what I've been doing since I was 22. So, you know, if you want to talk to me, like, my website's still up, but I'm also very liberal with my phone number. So text me. I'll give you a call back. Let's go get coffee. Let's go for a walk. Don't stick to comments on Facebook and Evanston Now. Like, reach out to me. I love talking to people. Even if we disagree, I'm sure we'll find something. You know, I can, whatever, we can bounce ideas off of each other. But I love talking to people. So that's the one thing I want to encourage. Just engage with me, because, yeah, I need to know what I need to hear from the community. So that's the one thing I'd love to share. So thank you.
Let people know where they can reach you.
So my website is omarsalem.org. It's still up, and there's a contact form there. Also, if you just Google my name, I think one of my real estate listings pops up with my phone number, so you can text me there. And yeah, I want to talk. I want to connect with you however we can.
All right, Omar, thank you so much. This has been Malika, Evanston Live TV. That was Omar Salem, new to D65 school board. He ran a very interesting campaign, and I'm just wondering if more and more people are going to run their campaigns the same way. I think it was pretty interesting. Kind of liked it. I kind of like that approach. Leaves all the suspect out the game.
Yep.
But congratulations to Sergio Hernandez, Maya Wilkins, and Omar Salem. You know, you guys ran great races. The forums were awesome. You won the people's hearts, and looking forward to seeing What's good for D65 coming up?